And thank you for that lovely guided meditation, Brother Ivan. So dear Thai, dear Sangha, dear spiritual family, dear friends, dear people on the path, if we didn't hear anything else, if we just lost the connection right now, the technology, I think we could all agree that we've received a lot of nourishment, a lot of cool rain. And so I really appreciate the sharing of Brother Will and also Brother Ivan. It's a wonderful time that we can come together and support one another, because that's really what we're doing, isn't it? We're here for ourselves this morning, but nothing we ever do is really just for ourselves. Even if we think we're only doing it for ourselves, it never is that way. Everything we do can be of benefit. Every word, every step we take, every breath we take can be of support to the loved ones around us, or the people on the street who see us walking, the people in the group who feel our energy. Every moment is such an opportunity to practice being, as I was described in the invitation, relaxed, to practice being relaxed, which might be just another word for feeling peaceful. I know from my own personal experience, and I'm sure all of you might agree with this, that when we're not feeling peaceful, we are anything but relaxed. So, yeah, the title, Brother David wrote me and asked, are you still on schedule for doing this? And if so, what would you like the title to be? And so we like to have titles for our Dharma talks, or for everything, really, don't we? A label of some sort. And so I chose this one because it was fresh in my mind, because it's all over the globe right now. I think people everywhere are trying to, are grappling, maybe is a good word, with how to get out of the situation, or when is all of this going to be over, speaking of the pandemic. Or some people might be speaking of something else, wildfires, floods, war. So many painful events occurring right now all over the globe. And of course, we are painfully aware of all of them because we read the news, because we have 24/7 information available to us. And it's very, very difficult to not read all of that, look at the images, perhaps cry over them. And I'm reminded suddenly of our teacher Thai saying, don't be quick to throw your suffering away. But of course, when we read the news, or when we know what's going on down the street in our own neighborhoods, where maybe people are hungry or suffering because they've had to stay inside for weeks, or whatever the situation might be, or maybe they're sick with COVID or something else, physically sick, maybe they're depressed. We know these things, and we suffer when we know these things about other people, people we love and the community. And it's very easy to get caught in fear, anxiety, worry. And that's our suffering. So then that becomes my personal suffering, even though I'm sitting here in a very peaceful environment. I'm in Hoi An in Vietnam, central Vietnam. If I look out my door, I'm looking right at a very peaceful small river. And across on the other side of the river, as far as I can see, are green rice fields, a few water buffalo, a few people out there with conical hats already working in the fields before it gets too hot today. So I'm in a peaceful environment, which has worked really well for me. It's been very necessary for my healing and transformation. And yet I can suffer. I can feel sad. I can cry, and I do. I don't lose myself, though. I don't get lost in these things, but I used to. So I feel like for some of you who don't know me at all, I want to put a disclaimer out there, or I don't know, maybe disclaimer is not the word. Maybe it's testimony. Maybe that's what I want to do, is to say that I am a living, breathing testimony to the power of this practice, to the power of mindfulness, to the power of a spiritual path. Because the person you're looking at is not the person I appeared to be in the way I lived my life 35 years ago. Some of you have heard me say that I came to this path very suddenly when my mother suddenly died 32 years ago. She was not a young woman, but she was very healthy, very vital, and she just dropped dead. And until that moment, I somehow had managed to live 47 years not realizing that mothers die, mothers pass away, as do fathers, as do we all. So I've been always grateful to my mother for having done it like that. I don't know that she did it for me. We were very close. I think she knew that if I had been present with her in that moment, it would have been very difficult for her to do it. But as it was, she, as my first teacher said, she had perfected the art of dropping her body. She just died. No, I mean, she might have had a few minutes of suffering. She had a heart attack, apparently. But because of that shock, my eyes flew open, and they haven't closed since. But I am also here to tell you that the spiritual path is a process, and it's never ending. Even when we drop this body, we continue on. And that's a big subject, a big topic, especially if you're new to this practice and the language that the Buddha uses and our teacher Tai uses. That you heard the word emptiness when Brother Will talked about when we put our hands together and we bow. The communication between us is perfect because we're both empty. And I heard that word, and I thought for those who are really new to the practice, and maybe some others, that word could be confusing. What do you mean, empty? What do you mean? I'm anything but empty. And that's true in a way. But we're empty of a separate self. We're very full of everything else, of everything, including of each other. So that's the good news. And that's a reason that finding our way out by going in is greatly facilitated. We can support ourselves and each other by coming together like this. And later you'll have an opportunity to, we'll each have an opportunity to be in Dharma sharing, where we share from the heart and we practice listening deeply to one another. We practice using loving speech when we express ourselves. Some of us may not be comfortable sharing, and that's okay. We still offer our presence, and we still listen deeply. And when we listen deeply, we can listen to every sharing as though it's a Dharma talk. Or as I love to quote Gandhi, and he said, listen to everyone in front of you who's speaking as though God is speaking directly to you. Because we're not separate selves. So when I sit in a circle with 6 people or 16 people, I know that as I listen, I'm listening with my own situation in mind. We're invited to do that. Ty has always said to do that. And I know that I'm hearing an aspect of myself. But sometimes, especially when we're new, at least this is the way it was for me, we might sit in that circle and hear someone share and say to ourselves, that's not me. No, I'm not like that. But eventually, if we sit in enough circles, and if we keep our hearts and minds open, we will begin to hear at a deeper level, and we realize, yes, that is me. Oh, yes, I had never thought of it like that. Ah, right, I've had that experience. It touches something in me, and as Brother Will said, we hear the Dharma as rain. It penetrates us. We're not. In this moment, I'm not trying to indoctrinate anyone into any belief system or tell you anything you don't already know. I'm only speaking my truth, what I've found to be true for myself, and some of it will resonate with some of you. Hopefully all of it will resonate with all of you. Probably not, because we're all at different stages of the path of waking up. So I've had 32 years of waking up, and I'm nowhere near finished. That's good news. I'm nowhere near finished, which is maybe why I woke up this morning thinking, I want to say, oh, people, you just don't know. But I have healed and transformed, or so much has been healed and transformed in me. I didn't do it all by myself. So I want to sort of take the I out of that. But there has been so much healing and transformation in me. My life prior to 1989 was just so very, very different from the way I have been living it for the last 26 years or so anyway. So my path was, my immediate path was grief support. And a dear spiritual friend, I didn't think of her as that at the time, but she was really a guide, a spiritual guide. She was my dearest friend at the time. And she told me about a woman that I might want to go and talk with. And this woman was a very wise psychotherapist. And I worked with her for 10 years. And for 7 years, weekly group therapy. And it's no wonder that I responded when I finally met Ty in the Plum Village tradition, 1997. That's when I met them. Right away, the practice The language spoke to me because Thai teaches about healing that inner child. He really teaches Buddhism as the Buddha being having been the first psychologist. He says that. And the therapy that I was fortunate enough or meant to connect with in 1989, her practice was healing the inner child. The family, healing the family of origin, healing the inner child. And at least half of the work we did each week was experiential, where we did role playing. And but even with all of that, you know, and that process, it was a good year and a half before I could relate to any of the other women in the group. I felt that different. I was that disconnected from myself. I was living here. I really valued logic and rational thinking. I was studying to take the pre-law exam to get into law school, 47 years old. It's never too late to change careers. After that event in 1989, thank you, I could never get into law school if I were attracted to it. I could never pass that exam now. I don't, my mind doesn't work that way anymore. But at the time, that was the way I thought, that was the way I acted. Totally out of touch with the body. Didn't know anything about the island within. Couldn't identify my feelings. I knew anger, but I really didn't think I had any. I thought I was one of those people who just somehow that, no, I don't get angry. I smile a lot. I was a Southern girl. In the Southern United States, we're taught little girls learn to smile, and boys do too. We expect everyone to smile. And in our Plum Village tradition, we're encouraged to smile, but the intention and the motivation and the understanding of why we're doing it is quite different. I was taught to smile, to pretend, and to stuff my feelings. And I passed that on to the people around me, including my own children. If you can't smile, just go to your room. You don't get to have your feelings. So it was like that. And I grew up like that too. No one wants to hear a little girl whining and crying. So just go to your room. Shame, shaming. So my path, and I suggest that for some of you it might be the same, my path of discovery was also one of recovery. Recovering from some of those early messages, those painful things I saw and heard in my environment growing up. Parents who argued a lot, an environment that was full of anger, which was why, as I got older, I was very careful to hide that anger because I didn't want to believe I had any in me. Why? Because if it got out, who knew? I had seen what could happen. So I was afraid that I would be overwhelmed by my feelings. So I just kept them inside and smiled and said, no, I'm not angry. No, it's okay if you step on my foot. I'm not angry. No, that doesn't hurt. I understand. So I abandoned myself for years, my feelings. I ignored them. And as Ty says, when we ignore our feelings, it's just like ignoring a child who's crying. And the child is that one that's inside saying, hey, pay attention. This is not okay. Trish, big Trish, take care of us. This is not okay. So finding the way out, we have to find our way in first. And it's very, very helpful. So it doesn't have to be first we do this and then we go in and find our way out. And then we go forward together with the Sangha. We do it all together. We can do it that way. In fact, it's very difficult. I never could have done it by myself. So my first Sangha was the psychotherapy group. And then I found myself joining other groups. And you might find yourself doing that too. I think it's extremely helpful to have more than one teacher in one's life. I've had many teachers, and I still do. I read books by other people. I listen to podcasts by other spiritual teachers. And then, of course, I've discovered that my son's pet dogs are wonderful teachers as well. The kitty is a wonderful teacher, showing me how to totally relax, how to totally let go. So there are many teachers all around us if we wake up to that and notice that. And then we discover we have that teacher inside of us. And then we discover the real power of, oh, I have so much I can share. I have a lot of wisdom too, as each of you do. You've each had your experiences. You each have all of that in you, those experiences that you can share with one another. Mm-hmm. I think the basic question, and one that we're never, as children or young people in school, no one suggests that we ask this question. The basic question is, there are two actually in my mind. Who am I? And what is this all about? Maybe there are three questions. Why am I here? What is all this? Why was I born? What's this about? Is it so that I can try to get the best education, have the cutest friends, be around the smartest people, or get the best job, or make the most money, belong to all the right groups? Is this what I'm here for? And if you look at around you and maybe at your own life, you might answer that by saying, well, it appears so. It seems that the majority are doing that. It seems that's what I was taught. I know by the time I got to university, it really wasn't even about getting an education. It was really about getting a vocation. It was really about studying courses that I could then get out and make a living and hopefully make a really good one. But is that what I was born for? Is that what it's about? I think that's because we don't ask that question. And of course, and in fact, I think that question does get asked when people hit middle age. You've heard that, I haven't heard it said in a long time, but what is it called? The middle age doldrums or whatever. When, especially men, when their careers seem to peak, maybe they're in their 40s or 50s, and they seem to have just made it. They've hit all their goals there, and still they feel empty, but not the kind of emptiness that Brother Will talked about, but empty as in unfulfilled, as in dissatisfied, which is another word for suffering. Dissatisfied, suffering, disappointed. I've spent so much of my life, half of it's gone, and what have I done? And I'm still not happy. What's wrong with this picture? And a lot of people live like that. The vast majority of people live like that. at least in our world. And when I say our world, I mean our world of people who have access to technology. And, you know, now the people who are in some village in India, in some province where they're just trying to have enough to eat, they're not having those kinds of thoughts. They're caught up in, how can I get some food for myself and for my family? So they're at a very basic level of physical survival. Can't be sure that they are not highly evolved spiritually, however. I'm sure that some are. Ty says, make good use of your suffering. It's probably one of the reasons that you've joined this group today. You feel a need for support. The future looks pretty grim. If all we do is listen to the news. But the present can be pretty beautiful. And the present is what we have. Why worry about the future? We don't know. We don't know anything about that. What we do know is what we have today. And what I'm hearing is a lot of wonderful things are happening precisely because of COVID. Precisely because of the pandemic. More and more people waking up and asking, what is this all about? And what are my priorities? Prior to February or March of 2020, we were just doing our own thing, whatever that was, and going along thinking, I know what tomorrow will look like. It's going to look like today. It's, yeah. Feeling that we were really walking on firm ground. And then suddenly, like, all of a sudden, we started getting a mega dose of the truth of impermanence, that nothing is permanent. And that can be very scary, especially when you're lying in bed at night, feeling very vulnerable, flat of your back. It can feel overwhelmingly scary. So what to do about it? So we join a group like this. We start reaching out to friends. We start making phone calls out of a need at first, and then out of a wish to be of support to someone else. I just saw a message from a friend who lives in Saigon, in Ho Chi Minh City. And you probably know that they've been on lockdown since July 8th. And situation in terms of COVID and the number of cases seems to be getting worse. I don't know, I haven't looked at the news today, but a lot of cases every day. And yet, she says in this message, oh, the most incredible things happening. The women who are cooking up a storm, she said, for those who don't have food. You know, a lot of Vietnamese in cities in particular don't have a kitchen. They're used to eating on the street. They might just have one room, those who are living at the poverty level or below it in particular, but maybe even some others who just don't care to spend their time cooking, and there's so much street food. But now suddenly you can't go out. So you can't go avail yourself of the street food. So what are you going to do? So the best is coming out in these people. People are offering to help each other. They are bringing food to each other. They're calling and they're emailing and they're feeling a sense of brotherhood and sisterhood because they're having the shared experience. Negative experience, one could say. But on the other hand, you know, the Buddha says, Our Buddhist teachings really teach us it's pretty futile to judge a situation as good or bad. Because for every effect, there is a cause. And every cause, there is an effect. And it goes like that. And so what looks negative today can turn out to be positive. So what can we do? The best thing we can do is breathe, be present for ourselves, be present for each other, support one another, learn as much as we can, listen to one another, realize that we can have all of our feelings. Even when we transform, heal and transform something negative inside of us, that seed is still there. So it's very human to continue to have the seed of anger and despair and fear and violence and all those negative seeds, as well as the lovely ones. And so our practice is to do everything we can to nourish the positive seeds and not give any energy to the negative, so that they can die down and just sort of be there in our subconscious, or our, what Ty calls the basement of the psyche. I watched a podcast of Ty recently where it was a Q&A, and he talked about how he suffered from depression when his mother passed away. He was already a monk. And he really suffered for about a year. It was how he discovered walking meditation, the healing power of walking, slow walking meditation. Maybe we'll have some of that later. But he said in this podcast, I still have that seed of depression in me. You know? So he's not the man there who's just, you know, the wise teacher who only has good thoughts and good feelings, and he has that. And he says, you know, he has learned he has to be mindful of his environment. He has to do everything to nurture that opposite seed of depression, which is joy and happiness. And he does that with smiling and being with friends like our group today. I want to stop for just a minute. We still have some time, but I'd like to ask for a bell, and why don't we enjoy coming back to our breath, which is that is the basic practice, and something that we can train ourselves to do. We don't just do it for a portion of the day and then forget about the breath for the rest of the day. It's really, really wonderful if we can train ourselves to frequently come back to the breath. And maybe one day we'll be able to say what I've heard Ty say, which is he spent a week in New York City, and he said, I can tell you, I never lost contact with my breath the whole time that he was in New York City, in that sort of crazy environment. So if someone would please invite a bell, and we can take 3 nice, deep, mindful breaths in and out, and then I will continue.
So dear Sangha, let's enjoy one sound of the bell together. Come back to our breathing.
Thank you, Brother Will, for that. I was at the right age, but I never developed, I just never was familiar with the music of Bob Dylan, which I suppose many of you are, but I receive a daily newsletter, Brain Pickings, it's called. I subscribe to it. And yesterday's had a quote from a song from Bob Dylan. And he said, I'm going to have to paraphrase because I've really kind of forgotten how it went. I've forgotten the exact words, but he said, he who is not focused, he who is not busy, that's just what he said. He who is not busy, who's not busy being born is busy dying. What does that mean? Well, if I'd heard that prior to 1989, that wouldn't have meant a thing to me. What is he saying? But then my root guru, the psychotherapist, the way she put it was when I'm not present with my breath and my body and my feelings in the body and the thoughts in the mind, if I'm not here in the present moment, aware of this present moment, then I am one of the walking dead. That was her unforgettable term. How can you forget that one? To be one of the walking dead is to be people who are running all around the planet, doing good works, bad works, whatever works, but mindless, totally out of touch with their own feelings, totally out of touch with the moment, in their heads, walking dead. So we have to be present for ourselves if we want to go inside and try to understand ourselves and understand the root causes of our, what Brother Ivan called in the meditation, the obstacles on our path, which I would say that once we start waking up, we see that they're not obstacles at all, they're challenges. They're simply challenges. They are like homework. So that thing that we thought was an obstacle actually becomes the focus of our meditation, the focus of our determination to work with it. So those obstacles, those challenges are these habitual ways of being, those habit energies that were passed down to us by our ancestors, by the community in which we grew up, the environment in which we live today. Environment, just so important. But once we come to a group like this, we are already awake enough that we can be mindful of the environment that we choose, whether it's the magazine we're reading. I don't know that anyone reads magazines anymore, but the program, the internet, the site that we visit, or whether it's the conversation that we allow ourselves to be a part of, or a film that we watch. It becomes very important whether that environment is continuing to feed those habit energies that are negative, like fear and despair and worry and anxiety and the habit of always thinking ahead and not being here now. So we exchange that environment, that negative environment. So the more mindfulness that we practice, the more we are aware in the moment that, hey, I don't need to watch this. I don't really, I can't tell you how many films I have tuned into based on years of having enjoyed that kind of film. But nowadays, I'll watch a little bit of it and say, I don't need to watch that. I really don't need to watch that. That is not uplifting me at all. I am not going to feel better after watching this. Why am I going to spend my precious time on this planet watching this, engaging in this? No. So we learn to live more deliberately, choosing how we live, what we're going to do today, in this moment, the people we're going to be with, the food we eat, how we speak, what kind of person do I want to be? It's a life's work, and there's nothing better. There's nothing better. If you haven't already begun this kind of work of self-discovery, of recovery, of going inside, of giving yourself support and then supporting others, if you haven't started it, I suggest that today you are, because you're here. There's no better way to spend a Sunday morning than this, being together. We need each other. We need brotherhood and sisterhood. Each of us needs it. Ty didn't build a community just because for you. He built it for himself too. He always surrounded himself with like-minded people. Nourishing environment. I don't want to go over. I'm suddenly reminded of, the famous anthropologist Margaret Mead. She was one of my first role models when I was a young teenager. And I read about her, and oh wow. But she said, don't ever underestimate the power of a small group. And Ty would say, we're each a drop of water, but together we form a river. And we're all flowing to the ocean, and we don't stand much of a chance as a drop of water. So good to come together and form that river and flow as a river, go as a river. And then just let life take us along, trusting and knowing that all is well. It always has been. We're right where we need to be, having the exact experience we need to be having for our spiritual growth. If you don't believe that, I hope you can remember the words and maybe revisit that later. I am right where I need to be, having the exact experience I need to have for my spiritual growth. I don't need to throw my suffering away. I want to learn from it. I want to spend time, I want to stop, spend time with myself, ask myself, why do I feel this way right now? Why do I feel that I'm suffering? Where is that coming from? Because we can always look around us, especially this group. My refrigerator is full of food. I have flowers right here beside me, something beautiful to look at. I have the rice fields right outside the door. I have a screen full of friends. I have my health in this moment. I have energy. I have people I love. There are people who love me. What else is there? What else do I need? It's all right here, right now. So let's be fully present for right here, right now. And in a moment, it'll be again, right here, right now. And tomorrow will be right here, right now. So we're always living in this present moment. The future, there is no future, only the present moment. And we live it moment to moment. So I'm going to bow out. Thank you all for listening to me and for being here for yourselves and for each other today. Yeah. Wishing you all well. Trish bowing out.
Thank you, dear Sister Trish. So, dear Sangha, let's enjoy 3 sounds of the bell as we allow the teachings to penetrate us. Breathing in right here and breathing out right now.